In the winding, storm-tossed world of Port Charles, few relationships have weathered as many fractures, restorations, and emotional upheavals as that of Nina and Willow. What began as a bitter collision of misunderstandings and buried truths has transformed into a high-stakes emotional battlefield, where unconditional love is wielded as both sword and shield, and motherhood itself is questioned, weaponized, and ultimately, torn apart. Now, as secrets unravel and loyalties shift, Nina stands at a dangerous crossroads, and the real question is no longer whether she can reclaim her daughter, but whether she should even try. The revelation that Nina was Willow's long-lost biological mother once promised the kind of soap opera redemption arc that Port Charles thrives on, two women divided by years of secrecy finally reunited by fate and blood. But what should have been a healing journey became a slow-motion tragedy. The moment Willow learned the truth, she did not run into Nina's arms with gratitude or curiosity. Instead, she recoiled. To her, Nina was not a long-missing maternal figure, but a symbol of betrayal. That bitterness was compounded by Michael's influence. Michael, wounded by Nina's controversial romance with Sonny during the Nixon Falls saga, immediately cast her as the villain in his and Willow's story. Willow, eager to maintain solidarity with her partner, adopted Michael's grievances as her own, effectively slamming shut any door that might have opened between mother and daughter. In the early aftermath, Nina did not fight back. She absorbed the blame, the vitriol, and the silence like a woman convinced she had earned it. For Nina, love was not something that could be demanded, it had to be earned, even if it meant swallowing her pride. When Drew entered Willow's life, bringing with him a new wave of controversy, Nina once again found herself at odds with the majority of Port Charles. But unlike the others, she chose not to alienate Willow. Instead, she defended her daughter, stood by her side publicly, and quietly bore the backlash. It was a gesture that did not go unnoticed. Willow, perhaps softened by Nina's loyalty, began to slowly let her guard down. There were shared moments, tentative connections, and even glimpses of affection. But they all came at Nina's expense, on Willow's terms, and under an unspoken rule: one misstep, and the fragile bridge between them would collapse. That misstep came soon enough. Nina, desperate to preserve the relationship she'd barely managed to build, made a fateful decision to conceal her knowledge about Drew. In her mind, it was a protective act. A lie of omission meant to spare her daughter further heartache. But to Willow, it was the ultimate betrayal. When the truth came out, as it always does in Port Charles, Willow exploded. The trust she had so cautiously extended was shattered. The resentment she had tried to suppress resurfaced with ferocity. And Nina, once again, was cast out. No matter the intent, the mistake was unforgivable in Willow's eyes. Yet this time, the narrative began to shift. Port Charles had changed, and so had its perspective on Willow. Her self-righteous condemnation, her fierce protectiveness over her family, and her blind devotion to Drew had begun to wear thin. It wasn't just Nina who questioned her choices, others began to see a pattern. The woman who claimed to value truth and loyalty had repeatedly turned her back on those who offered both. Nina's flaw was secrecy, Willow's, it seemed, was selective memory. She clung to her own sense of moral superiority while ignoring the very real damage caused by her own decisions. Willow's downfall was not orchestrated by Nina. It was a slow, personal undoing born from denial and misplaced faith. She believed Drew was her anchor, but he turned out to be her storm. She pushed away her biological mother while embracing a man whose lies were far more toxic than any omission Nina had made. And when the consequences came, losing custody, public humiliation, emotional instability, Willow did not turn inward for reflection. She lashed out, and once again, Nina became the scapegoat. Through it all, Nina remained painfully silent. Her love for Willow, though unreciprocated, anchored her in place. She walked on eggshells, begged for proximity, and bore every insult in silence because she believed that was the cost of love. But even love has its limits, and Nina may finally be approaching hers. The question now is not whether Nina will be forgiven, but whether she should keep trying to earn a forgiveness that comes with so many conditions. There's a brutal kind of irony in how Willow treats Nina, not as a mother who made mistakes but as a perennial villain to blame when her own life spirals. In her world, Nina's errors are magnified while her sacrifices are ignored. Yet, when Willow looks around and sees who remains by her side, Nina is often the last one standing. Not Michael, not Drew, not even her closest allies, but Nina, bruised and unwelcome, still standing in the doorway, waiting to be let in. That kind of devotion may appear noble, but it borders on self-erasure. Nina has every right to ask, what is left of her when she's reduced to a punching bag? Perhaps it's time Nina stopped asking for forgiveness and started reclaiming her dignity. She cannot rewrite the past, but she can redefine the future. She can choose to love her daughter without losing herself. She can let Willow figure out her life, her relationships, and her priorities without demanding that her mother be the martyr every time something goes wrong. A parent's love should be unconditional, yes, but not self-destructive. This shift wouldn't be about vengeance or cruelty, it would be about survival. Nina has endured heartbreak, betrayal, and alienation. She has sacrificed her pride, her autonomy, and even her happiness in pursuit of a bond that only ever seems to run one way. But if Willow cannot see the value of what Nina has offered, protection, patience, forgiveness, then maybe she doesn't deserve it. At least, not until she's ready to meet her mother halfway. In many ways, Nina's greatest flaw is that she never fought back. She let herself be exiled from her own daughter's life, convinced it was punishment for past sins. But redemption doesn't require humiliation. It requires truth. And the truth is that Willow's pain is not solely Nina's to carry. It's time for Willow to own her choices, to look in the mirror and acknowledge that not all villains wear their flaws on their sleeves. Some wear them in silence, in loyalty, in the ache of a mother who waited too long to speak. If Nina does choose to step back, it will not be out of anger, but necessity. She has other battles to fight, other pieces of herself to reclaim. She has a life outside the orbit of Willow's judgment, one that may finally begin to heal if she allows herself to let go. Port Charles is a town of second chances, but even second chances must be earned, not extorted. Whether Willow will ever see Nina for who she truly is, complex, flawed, loving, wounded, is uncertain. But Nina's value isn't contingent on that recognition. She is not just a mother, she is a survivor. And sometimes, the bravest thing a survivor can do is walk away. In the end, perhaps the most heartbreaking part of their story is that both women want the same thing: connection, redemption, and peace. But until both are ready to give as much as they demand, they will remain strangers bound by blood and divided by silence. Nina may never be the perfect mother, but she deserves the right to stop being the scapegoat for her daughter's disappointments. And maybe, just maybe, if she stops trying so hard to win back Willow's love, she'll discover she never needed to chase it in the first place.